search for your competitors.
The #1 search engine in the world, and correct me if I'm wrong, is Google. And the #2 is YouTube.
When I started SEO, I would kind of do the search like, is this a ranking factor? And you get like 3 yeses and 3 nos and 3 maybes. And I was kind of like, that's not a way to learn.
What exactly you guys are doing that might be different? All right. Well, we're back at it again. This one I got up early for you. It was only me because Crystal's not going to get up at 5 a.m. because our guest is located not in the US. He's not in Australia. No, he's not in China. But our guest today, Kyle Roof, is located in one of my favorite places in Thailand, in Chiang Mai. So anyways, today I interviewed Kyle Roof, and Kyle is a great story because he's here in the US. We actually dove into why he moved over there and how's it going. Young guy, starting a family, living in Thailand, and you got to hear a story about started a successful business in SEO. So you might be wondering, Kenny, why in the world are we interviewing, or why in the world, are you talking to somebody about SEO when this is getting a flat cash flow game with K&K? And the thing is, I always tell you guys, I'm going to bring on different people. I'm going to bring on people that are in entrepreneurship. I'm going to bring on people that might be in money management. I'm going to bring on people that might own other businesses. I'm going to bring on people that might be about building your brand. I'm also going to talk to people about SEO. And why it matters is what we went through is the importance of SEO. And if you don't know what it is search engine optimization, which is really tied to Google. So when people are Googling you, we just talked about why it's important. So if maybe you're in the short-term rental business, you're in the long-term rental business, you're a property owner, you're in real estate, you're in the game, and people can't really find you, right? Or they are finding you and you have bad stuff on you. If you are interested, why not have something about you out there? So the stuff that is about you on Google, wouldn't you want to make sure that's correct? Wouldn't you want to make sure that if a potential lender that's giving you a loan or a potential tenant is looking up your company, that the stuff that's on Google that describes your company is all consistent and the same? Wouldn't that matter? Wouldn't that matter if a lender is looking you up? And by the way, they do, to give you that multifamily loan, that they're looking at you and making sure that there's no crap written about you that's not true or it's wrong information. Also, what if somebody wanted to look you up to potentially buy your property or want to reach out to you to say, hey, I might have a property you buy because I see you're active and you have the wrong contact information. So we went through Kyle. We all talked about his business, how he's been able to move and work remotely and doing that, but also just about SEO and the importance of it in any business, whether you're, in real estate, property management, you're doing rentals, whatever, is do you have a website? If somebody types in, I want to find a 1-bedroom apartment in San Diego, and yeah, you're on these, but you're using your website to also promote your stuff, are they able to find it? Do you have the correct landing pages? Is it done? So it was very, very easy 101. I called it like the dummy 101 SEO. I told him we're not dealing with a sophisticated crowd here. He can go way down the rabbit hole. We just talked high level SEO, what you can do to get it going. What are some of the important things? And he really broke down, honestly, I've been around, if you know, Neil Patel's and all these guys of the world that really are good at Google. I've been in a lot of rooms, and honestly, I got some nuggets that I never knew about and I never heard about, which I was like, shoot, I'm writing stuff down and I'm further along maybe than some of you. So if you do have a business, if you have a personal brand, if it's just you and you go and search your name, you're like, wait a minute, this listing and that listing, this is not correct. That's wrong information. You should go change it. And he talked about that. So anyways, without further ado, let's get into it. Kyle Roof. It's early, but I'm excited to get going. Well, Kyle, hey, thanks for joining us today. And we're doing this. It's so everybody knows it's 5 a.m. here in San Diego because you're located in Thailand. So first of all, welcome to the show. If you can give us a little bit of background about you, and then also how is it, we were talking a little bit before, how is it living in Thailand and kind of moving your family there and being there? I'd like to hear more about that. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, you bet. So I'm Kyle. I've been doing SEO for over a decade. We have an agency. We have offices in Phoenix, Berlin, Melbourne, and now just recently in Jamaica. So we're a multinational agency. I have a software that I developed called PageOptimizer Pro, which is an on-page SEO software. And I have a platform called IMG Courses, and that's where we teach SEO. And then I also run tests on Google's algorithm. And in the last several years, I've run more than 400 scientific tests on Google's algorithm.
Wow. Real quick, what made you move to Thailand?
Why not Thailand?
Yeah, I know.
In a previous life, I was an attorney. I was a trial attorney, and so was my wife. And we were in court every day. And it was one of those things like, this is the sexiest job in law, right? It's what you see on TV, and I absolutely hated it. I was just out of law school, so I went right through university to law school. So I was like 24, 25. I remember just like staring at these dudes. They were like 55, 60, 65. And I was like, oh, this is a grim crystal ball. Like, I don't want to be that guy. Like the ones that were there, and nor did my wife. And so we actually quit our jobs and we moved to South Korea to teach English. Wow. The plan was just to take 1 year off. We just got to, reset and refresh. And that 1 year off kind of turned into 5. And while there, that's actually, I got into website design development, and then from there into digital marketing. After Korea, we moved back to the US, and we actually had our son, and we'd been threatening a move for quite some time because I was doing so much travel with the agency, because we have offices in all these places around the world. And a big part of my job is speaking. I speak at conferences. And in 2019, I set up a speaking circuit on places that we'd been that we liked. And we did a week in each one. So I spoke in Bali, I spoke in Hanoi, in Chiang Mai, in Milan, and Munich. And we were talking to people that live there, just kind of see what it's like and look at schools and neighborhoods. And Chiang Mai really ticked all the boxes. There's an amazing community here of digital marketers and really high level digital marketers.
Wow.
And I was at a point in my career where I wanted to have my first multi-million-dollar exit. And there are people in Chiang Mai that were doing that, and not just doing it, but also the type that want to help you do it. They want to share their knowledge. And so last year I had my first multi-million-dollar exit. And I think a big part of that was coming into this community and plugging in and being involved here. So from a lifestyle standpoint, it's unbelievable because the cost of living is very low. We have a beautiful house. My son goes to an amazing international school. I have a driver. I don't even drive anymore. Like that kind of stuff is what you can do here on not a huge budget. And then on top of that, with the way that you can kind of up your life, especially in terms of as an online type person, there's a community here that wants you to grow. So all the way around, Chiang Mai is a real win.
Well, awesome. Yeah, we've been to Thailand, and I would say Chiang Mai was one of my, even though it's not near the beach, and that's the thing, I thought it was one of the coolest places. I don't know why. Just like you kind of go there and you experience it. And we were kind of like, man, we wish you spent more time. So it's pretty amazing that I've been there too. So I kind of understand a little bit what you're talking about.
It's definitely a city that sleeps. I mean,
yeah,
there are some late night spots, but basically everything's pretty much closed by midnight. And to get from one side of town to the other is about 25, 30 minutes. So it's not a overwhelming place, but it still is Thailand. You still are. You can go get a bowl of noodles and be right in it. It's an ancient city. It was built in the 1200s. It has a moat. It was a walled, moated city, and the moat is still there. And I was actually walking from one place to another, and I realized I was like, I'm walking next to a moat. It was built in like 1290.
Yeah,
that's insane. So on top of on top of all this like modern stuff going on, I'm doing my business and whatnot. It's similar, like, this is unreal. And then you look at there's this like temple over here with this giant gold Buddha, and it's like, what is happening? All this stuff around is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, good for you. I think it's amazing when people just take a chance and go somewhere and experience it. And obviously it's been good to you and your family. So I think it's just a lot of people, like, in one way, envy. And a lot of people also are like, man, could I really do that? Could I make it happen? And so kudos to you guys.
Everybody's got something that's holding them back on those things. Like the people like, oh, I would go except blah, blah, blah. Well, we all have that. It's kind of more of a decision of doing it. But I distinctly remember when we decided, okay, we're moving to Chiang Mai, we're doing this. And all the people, like my friends and family, said like, oh, you're so brave for doing that. And I was like, it's not bravery, it's selfishness. My life will be better there. My family's life will be better there. And that's the point, that bravery has nothing to do with it. From my perspective, our lives will be better. And what was great too is we thought our lives would be good, and then once we got here, pretty much everything has just been excellent. Like, it's better than we even could have hoped for. So yeah, no regrets, and join us. Come please, and plug on in. You'll like it.
Yeah, I mean, we're such here in a world of hustle, bustle, go, and a lot of times it's exhausting, and it's just feel like you got to keep up. And so I feel like when you're a place like that, you have so much more freedom. But it sounds weird, but it's kind of true, because people there are not just chasing something, they're just living, I feel like. So
yeah, it's like that live to work, work to live kind of idea. You can live well here. You can actually have a lifestyle here that is conducive to the things that you want to do, in addition to growing your business. I think especially if, like, say you're just starting off in your business, what's nice about being here is you can actually live pretty well on $1,000 a month. And you can have you'll have an okay, well, the best apartment, no, but an okay apartment, probably has a swimming pool and a gym facility. You're still having beers with the boys on the weekends. You're still taking small trips here and there, but it gives you such a runway to grow your business. So you're not just like, oh, I've got to grind and grow my business. You're actually living life and living well at the same time, having the opportunity to grow. So I think if people that are in that situation where like, hey, I want to take the plunge, I want to do my own business, but how do you do that? Because it's so expensive, especially if you're not getting income at the beginning. If you come to a place like Chiang Mai, your runway is so long, you can kind of put that time in and still live pretty well.
Wow, that's awesome. So, my audience is always bring on some different guests where, a lot of them are real estate investors and, they're into the cash flow. It's called Get the Cash Flow Game with K&K. Obviously, which is cool is we do interview people. We're going to be an attorney left. Now you have a business that you're able to be wherever you want. And obviously you're making money, which is great. And a lot of people are like, Kenny, why do you have a guy that wants to talk about SEO on? And I think as real estate investors, we're one track mind. I've had people on about building brands. They go, what does that have to do with real estate investing? And we were kind of talking about that before of what value we can bring to the audience. But before we kind of go into there, can you kind of just talk about, you've been 10 years in SEO, I read. Obviously, you've figured something out that's interesting because you're growing a business from it. And I've read about you and it's fascinating. What exactly is SEO for somebody that's a dummy that doesn't know? And then why is this so important to just anybody,
The basic idea on SEO is you want search engines, and in particular Google, to like you more. So if somebody's doing a particular search for something and you have a website, you want to show up higher for those searches. And that's the bottom line of SEO, is kind of making Google like you and your pages more. When it comes to a brand, though, a lot of people don't think about SEO until they've got something negative to deal with. If you have a brand, one of the first things you want to do is brand level SEO. It's actually one of the easiest things to do, where you identify on your site, let's say you have a personal brand or you've got a company brand, you identify on site who you are. I'm a person and I do these types of things, or I'm a company or I'm a brand or I'm an entity and I do these types of things. But then after that, you're going to see a lot of websites. When you do a brand search for either your name or for your company, you're going to see a lot of websites that come up that have information about you. One of the first things you want to do is go into all of those websites and claim all of those listings. Because if somebody's interested in doing business with you, the first thing they're going to do is search you. And then when they do those searches and all these things come up and it's kind of random and weird, and there's not a cohesive message about who you are and what you're doing, that's I think pretty off-putting to them. And that's something that you can just go in and do and take care of. Probably like in 1 day or 2 days worth of work, you can go in and find all those sites, claim all those listings, put in the descriptions that you want. Majority of them are free, and the ones you have to pay for are a pretty nominal fee. And go in and do that. The next thing I would do is not just the ones that you see for you, but search for your competitors. If there's another brand that you're competing with or another person you're competing with as a personal brand, and see what sites show up for them. There are probably some other ones. You want to go in and claim those as well. So in addition to kind of getting that clear message on who you are and what you're about and what you do, if something negative were to show up, if you have those claimed, it's a good chance that they can actually keep those negative posts down, because those are usually pretty strong sites. And so if they're fresh and new and up to date, there's a chance that you could stop kind of anything bad from showing up on page one in the first place.
When you say claim, what does that exactly mean?
That'd be going into this site, a third-party site, and then usually creating an account and verifying that you are that person or that is your company. So you're claiming the listing that they have of you or your company on their site. And it usually it's a pretty light verification process. And then from there, you can go and usually optimize, the description of your company or the description of you. Make sure the phone numbers are correct. Make sure the links to your homepage are correct. The email addresses are correct. Those types of things.
So basically what you're saying is you don't even know, you search your name, there's sites that are about you and you're like, this is all incorrect, but that's what the general public's reading. So it could be bad information, wrong information, incorrect contact. So if somebody's searching you and they're like, they've got 10 different sites and your listings are all over, why not spend the time to clean that up? Because that's just going to help you, whether it's good, bad, or other.
Exactly right. And, to get that little listing on the right-hand side, a little knowledge panel that actually says who you are and kind of gives a little blurb. One of the ways to get that is to actually claim those sites, to get a consistent message across. And Google does crawl some of them to pull that information out to figure out who you are. And so you want to go in and do as much as you can to make sure it's a consistent message across all of those third-party sites.
Well, that's smart. And then also what you're saying is you can go to your competitor, whether, you could be a real estate investor where you raise money, right? And you have a website that talks about it. And then you want to make sure all those sites are about you, but then your competitor's going, well, why am I not on those 5 sites? So you're saying go there and sign up to put your information there. Because obviously if they're pulling up, that's probably a good site to recognize you.
Exactly right. And the more of that you can do, the better. so that you get that kind of consistent message across the web on who you are, what you're about, how to contact you, those sorts of things.
And is that, so that's kind of like a tedious process, right? There's no hack, there's no quick way to do all that with these sites.
So you can do, it's in the local SEO space. There are places called like Bright Local or White Spark or Yext, and you can do some of that there. Not all of it though. That will take care of some of those things. And I would recommend doing that, to be honest with you, because that's not terribly expensive to do. A couple $100 will cover pretty much anything you need. But you do want to do the actual physical search for your name or your brand and see what actually shows up, because those are probably not covered by a Bright Local or a White Spark. So you would actually manually, tediously, as you said, need to go in and do those things.
Cool. And
or
then,
you hire a VA to do it, and it's not too bad.
Yeah. And always remind people, because a lot of people don't know this, the #1 search engine in the world, and correct me if I'm wrong, is Google. And the #2 is YouTube, which is
also
YouTube.
Google.
Yeah. And this in SEO is really important. And always, we can go into it, but if you're a real estate investor, or you're putting your property for sale, you're putting a property for lease or things like that, like you said, somebody could be taking your listing, putting in other sites, and you're like, wait a minute, this is incorrect information. This is incorrect data. So you're getting calls and somebody listed your information. That could be another issue too, right? When you're putting all this stuff out there.
That's right. And let's say somebody's like, oh, they remember your name. So then they search for you real quick and they want to get a hold of you. They come to one of those sites, because a lot of people don't really know what these sites are. They just assume they're correct, and they get a bogus number, and then they have a bad experience. And it wasn't your fault at all. You didn't put that on there. Somebody else scraped your information and put it on there and put on an old number. But then now that negatively reflects back on you. One other example I can give too, you might be thinking like, I don't have anything that somebody's going to search for. That could be possible in terms of like keywords, like services or products or something like that. In the agency, we've only optimized one of our pages ever for SEO. And that's because we identified that people who are searching online for packages are not our client. We're a bespoke SEO agency. We're coming in, we're not a $99 a month kind of package place. So there really wasn't any reason for us to do much optimization. But then we identified in our Berlin office, companies that wanted to move from, say, the Swedish market into the German market. They don't speak German, so they're going to search in English. And so we got an edge by optimizing a page in English for these markets, because then we have German SEO, so we can do the German thing, but they want to communicate in English with us. And we got a lot of clients that way. So we optimized one page. I think we're still ranking 4th or so for like SEO agency Berlin or something like that. But for a while there, we were #1 or #2. And we kept going back and forth with Clutch. Clutch is a reviews type site. And what we realized is, why don't we just buy the listing in Clutch? And so that's what we did. So we went in and we claimed our listing. We had to pay for that one, but we realized if somebody comes in and they're either 1 or 2, they're getting us both ways, because they're either going to see us organically or they're going to click into Clutch, and then we're #1 in Clutch. And that is a strong signal as well for somebody. If they do the search for your brand and then they see you're up there, and then they see something else that's also very positive about you, either in that 1 or 2 spot, it sends an extremely strong signal. And we were able to convert a lot of leads out of that.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. So I'm part of a little mastermind in the real estate community, and we through a couple of networking, my buddy throws it, and we had Neil Patel, who he came and spoke, and he's like, as smart as he is, he's like, look, I was at lunch, this is like years ago, I was at lunch with somebody at Google, and she's like, Neil, you're missing something big in your business. He's like, what are you talking about? No, I'm like the pro at SEO. She's like, no, when people search, how do they search? He's like, what do you mean? They just type in the thing. She goes, no, do you think everybody just searches Google in English? He's like, I don't understand your point. She's like, so if somebody is in a country, they'll search a thing in China or in Spanish. And he goes, okay, so what's your point? He goes, and he showed this chart on the screen. He says one of the biggest ways you can boost your SEO is just take your website and turn it into, if we're here in San Diego, California, and we know we have a big population that's across the border that's Spanish speaking, why not have your website talk about Spanish? Because somebody might search looking for a condo or looking to buy or this or that in Spanish, and you're not going to rank. And so that was one of the easiest things. He went and changed all of his site, and he says we literally blew up our SEO and algorithm and that. So I actually did my site like that. So it's kind of like piggybacking on what you kind of just said.
That's 100% correct. And it's great technique too, because you could take a page that's in English, and as long as you translate it manually, so you didn't use like a little plugin, that is not considered duplicate content, even if it's the exact same content, because it's in a separate language. And so you can do multiple languages like that are appropriate for your business without a lot of extra stress. Like you don't have to do completely fresh pages, just have to translate what you have. And that's a great technique.
So what do you guys, there's SEO, and I think the problem with SEO, as is when people go search, if they're going to hire a company to do something, number one, they don't even know what they're hiring to do because they don't understand SEO. And you know, the other thing is there's so many companies out there that might promise or overpromise or who to trust. What do you recommend if somebody is interested in saying, I do have a brand, I do care about this, especially, you know, our generation younger, even if they're doing anything, they realize like you should have content online, you should have something about you, a bio. So whether you're a real estate investor, you're in the real estate game, why would you not have a bio? Why would you not tell people who you are, what you're about? Because if somebody wants to do business with you, most people are going on Google, typing in your name to learn more about you before whether we get on a podcast together, whether we get on a phone call. And especially our age, we're review whores, we're search whores. That's why I say that, because we're searching everything. We want to know reviews. We want to know what's going on. What exactly do you recommend? How should somebody find a company and what should they be looking for just for the basic SEO? And then kind of talk about what exactly you guys are doing that might be different.
The biggest thing is transparency. Whoever you're dealing with, you need to see exactly what they're going to do. They should be comfortable enough to show you everything that they will be doing. Something that we do agency side is at the beginning of the month, we talk about the plan. We're here, we need to go there, and these are the things that we want to do and that agreed upon. And then from there, during the month, we're updating, this is what we're doing, those things that we talked about. At the end of the month, we show it. We show this was the work that was done, these are the results, and then for the next month, then we make the plan for the following month. And there should be some sort of cadence like that, where you should never be in a situation where like, I don't know what these guys are doing. You should know what they are doing. You know, there should be a plan that was decided on and agreed upon, and then that's what they're doing for that month. And at the end of the month, they should be able to show everything that they've done. That's probably the biggest thing. So you could ask for examples of reports. You know, they can redact, you know, the sensitive information, but you should see what a beginning of the month plan kind of looks like. What does a sprint look like? We do 3-month sprints, you know, so they should probably have some sort of plan like that. So they're not just seat of their pants, you know, going after shiny objects and, you know, try them out on your site, because that's not what you want. You want to like, this is the plan for the next 3 months. And this is then the micro, what we're doing for this month. And then they can actually show the work that they did, you know, that's all should be there. And it sounds so basic, but once you get into this, there's so many agencies that don't do that, you know, at all.
I agree.
And I know there are a lot of people who are like, I don't know what they're doing. And they might even be getting good results too. They'd be like, hey, you know, I searched my stuff, it shows up, they're doing great. That still gives me some heartburn, because they should be able to show you exactly the techniques that they're doing. You know, that shouldn't be a problem. Maybe not like the actual like A, B, C, D kind of steps, but like, hey, this is the end result. We did this and here it is. And you should be able to see it. That transparency, I think, is massive. And if you have any kind of pushback on transparency, I think that's somebody you shouldn't deal with at all. In terms of like my approach to SEO and kind of how we go about it, when I started SEO, I would kind of do the search, like, is this a ranking factor? And you get like 3 yeses and 3 nos and 3 maybes. And I was kind of like, that's not a way to learn what we're doing. And then I realized like, oh, everybody must have test sites. And so I started throwing up test sites, and then I developed a method to test Google's algorithm. And in 2015 was the first time I went on stage to speak about SEO. And I was talking about this method that I developed. This is a real high level conference, and there were about 40, 50 people there. So it was the kind of one where they can talk to you while you're on stage. And I thought this would be collaborative. This is a high level group. And I was like, hey, this is what I'm doing. What are you guys up to? And about 5 minutes into the talk, I realized no one's doing this. At all. Like people aren't running tests like this. And so much so that I now have a US patent on the method that I developed for testing if something is or is not a ranking factor in Google. So that's our approach. And what we've kind of carved out is, you know, it's not pixie dust. It's not witchcraft, you know, it's not magical. You know, you don't have to do anything crazy. It's actually mathematical. It's an algorithm. An algorithm is math. And if you give the algorithm the math that it wants, you can do very, very well. And so what we do all the time is we're actually running tests on Google's algorithm to see, does this work, does it not? And so by the time that we bring a technique to a client and say, hey, this is what we want to do, it's because we've already run it within test environments. And so something that I might ask somebody that's a potential agency, like, hey, what tests are you running right now? What are you guys experimenting on? What are you trying? And I would be a little hesitant if they aren't doing anything, because then I feel like they might be experimenting on your site. You know, they might hear about a new technique that they like, and instead of actually trying it over here, they're just bringing it to you and they're running that test on your site. And that's not the best approach. I don't want anybody testing on my baby, you know, on the thing that actually could be very valuable to me. I'd prefer that they tried it somewhere else first.
Yeah, you don't want to be the guinea pig.
No, but in the industry, that's how it usually goes. You know, and it could be really solid technique. It could be really sound. It all looks great, but a lot of times, what a lot of SEOs and SEO agencies do, they take that idea and just put it on you and kind of, you know, see how it goes, rather than like running it in another environment. I mean, even like breaking down the pieces too. Like, do we need to do all of this? Could we just kind of manipulate these kind of things? And but I would say the vast majority are not doing that. So I would, in addition to transparency, I'd see kind of how are they learning about SEO? What are they running? What are they doing? How are they developing their new techniques and strategies, and get some feedback on that. And you'll know real quick if they're BSing on it. Like, oh, sure, we're running lots of tests. It's like, all right, give me the last couple, they were interesting. And they probably can't because they probably aren't doing it.
That's awesome. Congrats for coming up with that, by the way. I think the bigger thing is it's like when people get into Google, I don't think people really realize the value of Google. I don't think that people realize the value of search that aren't paying attention. I think just take a normal, any day business person that is like, why do I need to have my stuff on Google or this? But if somebody is going to say, fine, maybe I don't have a presence on Google, maybe I have a website, but I haven't even got a Google search, nothing, like, where would you recommend somebody to start, right? If they're just kind of like, I've been doing something for a while, I might be a well-known person in my community, but when it comes to searching for me, you're not going to find much, but everybody knows who I am, and whether that's, you could just be a real estate investor that has a lot of property and you're kind of like, I don't understand the benefit of it. And a lot of times I'd go to, well, if you have a bunch of properties you're listing, or do you have a website? Are you putting your properties on your website and showing these are the rents available and things? But if people can't find it, it's like, what's the point of even having the website, right? For people to go to. But where would somebody start? Like to just start saying, I want to do the basics to get my name up there and out there.
Sure. There's a concept in SEO where you have a primary keyword or a main keyword. So that'd be like the thing that somebody's actually typing into Google, like a main concept type term. If you have a main concept, that needs one page on your site. So something that I'll do with like say a new company, or they're coming in, they're talking to us and they're like, okay, we want to rank for this. That's fine. What page on your site have you optimized for that thing? And you often hear a lot of crickets, and they're like, well, we optimize the site. It's like, and it doesn't work that way. Google doesn't rank sites, Google ranks individual pages. And so
we call those like landing pages, right?
Exactly. Target pages, landing pages. Okay. There are a lot of different, but it's like one main concept is one page. So let's say you had you're talking about tacos and you're talking about burritos.
Okay.
All right. So the tacos, even though that's Mexican food and that'd be on maybe the Mexican food site or the cooking recipe site, tacos needs to be one page and burritos need to be a separate page, because you wouldn't talk about burritos on the taco page, essentially is the concept. So whatever is important to you, that could be your name, that could be your brand. If it's your name or your brand, that's probably gonna be your home page. That's the right page for that. But if you have any services or any products or anything else, like a book that you've written, or you're running a podcast, that should have its own separate page, because that's a different term or a different concept that you're trying to rank for. So the first thing you want to do is identify, like, what are the important things for me? Like if somebody were to search for something, what would I want to show up for? My name, my brand, and maybe some of those other things, my book, my podcast, services or products, my courses, something like that. Those would all be then separate pages on your site. So that's the first thing is I identify those things. I'd see if I have those pages. And if I don't, those are the ones I'd build out first.
Okay. That's a good point. Cause I think a lot of people think you're right. They have a website, it's all covered on there, but it's all, some people just lump it all into one. So a landing page would be maybe on the top of your website where you have the different things. Somebody clicks and it talks about tacos. They click, it talks about burritos. They click, it talks about Mexican plates, where it's just separating. And then if somebody searches, where's the best burrito in town? Your page could actually come up. Okay. And that's exactly how we're getting there. Okay, cool.
And like, it'd be like yoursite.com/tacos and then yoursite.com/burritos. So it would have its own URL is the idea. The URL then goes to a specific page.
So would you recommend, that's interesting. So let's say, for example, I'm going to use it as I'm in real estate. I'm just thinking about people that maybe they're managing their own properties and are listening to this, and maybe they have 10 different properties. Maybe they have some that are coastal. They have some that are inland. They have condos, they have houses. If they're listing and they're putting the listings, somebody could be searching in Google single family residences, and I'm picking a place in Pacific Beach. Well, if you have all your listings under one category, it could be hard for Google to take your search and find those. Is that correct? Like,
yeah, if you had different property types, I'd probably have different pages. You might have one page that's the catch-all that has everything. That's fine. That's a category type page, or like kind of one of those broader pages. I would totally have that. But if people are going to be searching for specific things, like you specialize in condos in Chiang Mai, like I would have a condos Chiang Mai page, because, people who are looking for a condo are searching for that. So if you have specific categories of properties, I would have them all on their own separate page, because that's probably something that somebody would be searching for when they know that's the type of property they want. Zillow and huge and
exactly.
Remax and all that. But I would still do it, because what if you're doing like a social media campaign? And so you can get right in there and people are going to click around. Once they get to your site, you want them to be able to find all those things and have it properly categorized for them anyway, right?
Yeah.
You don't want them to come to your site and it's all just kind of garbage and lumped together. You want to, at a minimum, make it easy for people to go through. And then you could do a lot with social media to kind of jump to the top of searches when people are looking for things in those areas. And having a well-organized site really helps facilitate that, even though you're even not doing it for an organic gain.
Yeah, because some other people too here, if you take San Diego, maybe even Chiang Mai, we have short-term rentals, right? Which is kind of blowing up. And so you take San Diego, everybody's like, well, I don't want everybody to find me just on, VRBO and Airbnb. And because somebody goes to Google and they type in cool pads in La Jolla, San Diego, well, there might be some come up, but if you had your own website and you're doing that, like a lot of people are also trying to drive traffic away from Airbnb and VRBO and saying, well, if you're a repeat, book on my website and save the fees and I can still do it. And that's what I'm noticing. People want to build their own website, almost their own little SEO.
Yeah.
It's happening more to kind of get away from those big companies.
Well, and La Jolla might be impossible to win, but like, what about like Ocean Beach?
Yeah.
That might be doable.
Yeah.
Legitimately, and that's where then if you can get away from those other sites that are going to take a cut or commission and do it directly, or what's on the other side of the hill as you go more inland, that's another neighborhood over there, which that also might be winnable as well, right? And so I would still have the La Jolla page if I still had La Jolla property, but then I would also look at, there might be smaller regions or smaller areas that you could actually win, that people might actually search for, and huge might not be as interested in it because they're going to focus more on La Jolla because those are going to be higher ticket kind of things, but you still make a lot of money in Ocean Beach, right? Like that's still very excellent. And that might be more winnable.
Yeah, you're right. Because a lot of people have vacation rentals all over. They have North Park, all these little micro neighborhoods that, like you said, are not the big, people aren't going to San Diego. They're like, the VRBO and Airbnb are more focusing on where's their, the big name, the Coronados, the La Jolla's, the Del Mar, where they're really going the masses, and the rest are kind of like, it's there, but it's not as hyper focused.
Go where they ain't, the big sites, even though they have more resources, they still do tend to focus on certain things and they do let other things go. And so if you can find those areas where they're not as focused, that's an opportunity to move in and start winning terms.
And do you believe too with SEO? I mean, I've heard this, I don't know if this is really true, that the longer you've had your website around, the more you're keeping up with it. Is that really going to play a role when somebody's typing in, you are moving up, or is that really not true?
So it's not necessarily the age of the site, but it's the age of the page that has been ranking. So there's like an inertia, like where a page that's been number one is more likely to stay number one, especially if it's been there longer. And that's frustrating for people because they'll be like, I'm looking at this page in number one and it only has like 200 words on it and it barely talks about anything. I don't think they have any links going to it, but it got there in 1998. And so it has an inertia and there's a good chance it'll stay. It'll take a lot to move it off of that position. So the time factor comes into how long it's been ranking in a particular position. And those are the ones that are more likely to stay.
A lot of stuff like I'm doing in marketing, I do social, we're doing the podcast, all that. And I work with influencers and a lot of stuff we're trying to do. Look, if I'm trying to find a pain point of a client or a need of a client, we're trying to back into that, right? So a lot of it's like yesterday we were on a call, we're kind of like talking about what is the consumer looking for, right? Like you said, if I'm anything, you could be a taco shop, you could be a real estate agent, you could be a loan officer, you could be a real estate investor. Like, what are the pain points of clients? What are they looking for? But a lot of people are like, well, what am I searching for? Like, how do I back into what do I want to talk about on my website so I know what that person searched for? Because just because they're searching for a taco or burrito, are they searching, is the number one search, what's the best taco or, taco? And like, how do you, from your standpoint, what do you recommend to like just anybody to say, this is how you should, like you said, go look at your competitors or where they're ranking, but how do you know what people are searching for and what you should be focusing on maybe on your landing page and what you're talking about?
So I think pain points, that's an obvious one. And I think everyone's going to do that. And I think you should do that. What I would consider is your competitors do not optimize for their bad points. So we did this thing where we got this bank and then they were deciding to go up against, Bank of America and Wells Fargo and PNC.
Okay.
And how do we do that? They've been around for forever. They're multi-billion dollars. We're like this much. And what I realized is that Wells Fargo does not optimize for their checking fees. And so when somebody is pissed off because they just saw this fee on their thing and they're like, what the hell is this fee? And then Wells Fargo isn't optimizing a page for that. So we did. What is this fee? What is this $25 fee in my Wells Fargo checking account? And then we had a page for it. And the page did not disparage Wells Fargo. It said, this is the fee. This is why you got it. This is how it works. And it was like, do you not like this fee? Because we don't charge it. And that page, those pages started getting like 2, 3, 4,000 hits a month. And they converted because you're getting people when they're pissed off. Like it's not just the pain point, but it's now affecting them and they didn't know what it was. And they didn't know how to fix it, and they didn't know what was going on. So then we gave them that opportunity to fix their problem right then and there. So if you're going up against Remax or whoever, and they've got obvious things that people hate about them, and they're going to be searching like, what is this clause? What is this thing? I would start to optimize for those types of terms, because then I think you could get that traffic away from them and onto your pages.
Yeah, it's a good point. We were same time we were there with Neil Patel. We're in a room and this group is made of realtors and loan officers. And I'm a loan officer here in the States. And we were kind of like thinking, what are people, you were kind of right. Like it might've been Neil or somebody was like, so what are people searching bad? And you're like, people hate the big banks, like screw the big banks. We want to go with somebody local, like whether the local loan officer or whatever. Right. And so it's funny. It's kind of like we were talking about what do they hate about the big banks? It's funny you say that. It kind of just jolted my memory. You're right. It's like, what about the bad points? What about your
nobody optimizes for their bad points? They all just kind of hope that nobody worries about it. But it was the kind of thing that somebody would search, like, what is this? Like, how did this happen? What's going on? And if you can provide the solution to it, that's a great opportunity.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. Also, what's fascinating about to you is I think for a lot of us that are in real estate and we're here buying, we have our jobs, and a lot of this podcast is about somebody might have a business, they might have a job, they took an exit and they're deploying capital into buying real estate. And I think the whole point of that is because they want financial, but freedom, and the more word is freedom, which seems like you've kind of created in your life right now. And I think a lot of people are, especially our generation, I'd say more than our parents, are very fascinated with the whole point is freedom is, and I think the pandemic really took this and brought this quicker, right? To like they always said is eventually one day more people will work from home. And well, guess what? We just took that was supposed to be in 10 years and made it in 2 years, right? That number. Yeah. And I think the thing when I meet people like you that are traveling all over the world, it's and anybody's more fascinated is like, how do you do this? How did you move, take your business, go there, and how are you running it? And that's a fascinating thing is how has that been just uprooting your life going there? I know we talked about a little bit, but how has that been running your business? Do you feel like because you're not in the States, are you not having an advantage or disadvantage? And I just kind of think that's pretty fascinating because you've got some type of, probably now you have financial freedom, but now you have freedom where you're kind of like, I'm living over here and I made it work. How does that happen?
Well, a lot of people, I think, start their own company or they start their own thing. And what they do is they just give themselves another job. And you can't build for a job. You have to build a business. And something that my business partner and I, when we started the agency in 2012, I guess, we both decided this wasn't going to be our forever job. We're building this to sell it. And when you build to sell, you have to remove yourself as a key player. Otherwise, you can't sell it. Like that the value of your company goes down if you're the one doing everything. And so over the span of, the time that we have run the company, we've slowly but surely removed ourselves from those positions, and you bring people in. And then that's what gives you the freedom. So initially, you might not make as much money. If you're doing the work, maybe you're going to make a little bit more money. But it's very short-sighted because what you want to do is you want to scale and grow and focus on things that you're actually good at, things that you can then make your business better. And if somebody's actually just, when you start off, you're doing 20 things, right? You've got 20 hats on. If you give somebody that one thing and that's all they're focusing on, they're going to end up doing it better than you are. It's hard to let it go though, because you think in your mind, like, I'm the only one that can do this, or I'm the only one that I trust. And it won't work out perfectly every time. You're going to have to fire people. That's the nature of running a business. But if you get somebody, you train them up properly, and they're handling that one thing, they're going to do it better than you can do. And you can focus on those other 19. And then slowly but surely, you're taking those hats away and passing them off to other people, and you're scaling appropriately. And the next thing you know, you turn around, you're actually really not doing the day-to-day as much. It's not an easy step. It's not an easy leap. It doesn't happen overnight, but with organization and really the determination to grind on it, you can get it done and get yourself to a point where then you're working on the things you want to work on. You're growing the things that you want to grow, and the business can really run on its own. Something that occurred to me was, can you leave your business for 6 months? And will it not maintain, but will it grow? And then that's when you know you have a business. And I think before that, if the answer is no, you probably have a well-paying hobby. And there's nothing wrong with a well-paying hobby. People make a lot of money off of that.
Yeah.
But that's if you want something that is an entity that could be sold, that another company might want to acquire, or somebody else might want to acquire. If you want that thing, then it has to be a business. And a business has to be something that can't be dependent upon one person. And even though you might be the founder and the creator and the visionary of it all, you should be able to step away and the business should be able to grow. And then once you get to that point, then you got something that's really special.
Yeah, it's awesome. I have a buddy here that's in real estate, very good. He always says, most of you, if you leave your job for a business for a month and it all goes to hell in a handbasket, he says, you don't have a business, you just have a job, a glorified job, you know?
Yep.
And I think that's true. And it's not scalable. The other fascinating thing, so are most of the people that are part of your company all remote, or people working in offices, or?
Before the pandemic, we had really two kind of main offices, and that was in Phoenix and in Berlin. And we did have kind of like where you can rent, like this is our desk at the co-working space, and this is ours, and nobody can use it. So we had that. I mean, would encourage people to come once or twice a week to kind of have that corporate culture, and then they could work from home or whatever. And then that was totally fine. And once the pandemic hit and everyone was just working from home, we were already remote anyway. And we realized that we didn't really get anything special from having people come into the office. And I think they actually kind of hated it. So it's like, we're team building. And they're like, no, we don't want to. But we were already, because we already have our SOPs. You know what? I think the reason that like some companies struggle with the work from home model is because their SOPs are terrible. You know, if you have solid SOPs where basically a well-trained Cocker Spaniel can probably do it, then you're going to be very successful and people are going to get the work done. But when you're asking them to reinvent the wheel every time, you know, and they don't have those SOPs, their productivity is probably going to go down. That's not rocket science to me. That makes sense. So be a better manager, be a better owner, get stronger SOPs for everything in your business, not just your product or your service or your thing, but like, how do you hire people? How do you fire them? How do you do this or that? Like all of those have SOPs. And if you have that nailed down, you can have a completely remote business and I think do really, really well.
Are you using, I mean, I know you're in Thailand, but are you using virtual assistants in your business?
We have very few. Most of the people that work for us are working for us.
Okay.
You know, like they're not VAs. They are, you know, they employees, if you will. Although they're all contract employees, is kind of how we have the company set up, but they primarily work for us and they're not VAs. I have a VA, but that's a personal thing.
Wrapping up here, is there anything, you know, I mean, you can go so deep in SEO and I appreciate we kind of just went high level and very easy, but is there anything I didn't ask or anything that we didn't talk about that's just kind of top of mind where it's something you can kind of leave the audience just with something simple that's, you know, we didn't cover?
Yeah, I got you. So, you know, we talked about like kind of picking out those things, like these are the things I want to rank for. These are the important terms. And so you're going to have one page for that term. Now, what do you do? So think of that phrase, right? Whatever that phrase is, doesn't matter. There are 4 places you want to put that term on the page. You want to put it in the URL. You want to put it in the title tag. That's the title that search engines see. You want to put it in the H1. That's the title at the top of your page that the human sees. And then you want to put it in your paragraph text. That's their main body. Those 4 places, put it there one time. The dirty secret of SEO is if you do that, you've probably done 60% of SEO.
Wow.
And if it's a low competition term, sometimes that's all you need to do. Now, for most terms, especially in real estate, there's probably gonna be more. But at a minimum, like when you're just starting out, like what do we need to do? Put your keyword in those 4 places and you've done a lot. You've really moved yourself in the right direction. And then the rest of it is kind of figuring out how to optimize the page, both on and off. And that's where maybe an expert comes in and helps you out. One warning, if you have a page that's ranking pretty well, like it's established, it's actually doing decently, and you realize that you don't have the keyword in the URL, don't change that URL. If you change the URL, you're actually giving Google a brand new page, and Google will have to refactor it, and there's no guarantee they're actually going to get the rankings back that you had. So only do this on a brand new page or a page that is just not doing anything at all, and it's okay to change the URL. So established page, don't worry about that. But otherwise, new pages or pages that aren't doing well, get it in those 4 places, including in the URL.
And that's interesting. So do you think in your URL, having a name that's describing what you do is that important?
If it's the keyword, absolutely. Don't overthink it. Yeah. People try to out clever Google. And they're like, well, I don't want to give the phrase exactly. I want to like style it. No, put the keyword in exactly. And then actually like your URL, your page title and your H1 should all be the exact same. You know, like they should be the exact same. There shouldn't be any difference between them. Don't get clever with it. Just do it exactly as that. And you'll have a lot more success in SEO.
Let's say you have the name of your website is not, it wouldn't say exactly what you do, but it's when people search it, it's coming up. And could you still do pretty well with having paragraph text and stuff like that of what you do? It's yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you have a name and you like it, you're like, well, I don't want to change. Like you said, even if it's ranking, how could I make this, what could I do over here on the other three? Can I do something on the other three or the other one?
Absolutely. Like you can have a domain name for branding purposes that's easy for people to understand. And then, you've got your name, .com or whatever, / and then that / is the page. And that's where you'd put that term, or that other thing that's descriptive that you want to win, and it would have its own page.
Okay. So it'd be the / and then that's the landing page we're going to go to. Okay.
Exactly right. So you don't worry, the domain, it could be, whatever it is. It doesn't matter at all. It could be random numbers and letters. That would still probably work. .com and then / and then after that, that's where that main term goes, and that turns into its own page, for you to focus on.
Kyle, where can people find you, learn more about you, what you do, your services, all that stuff?
The easiest thing is KyleRoof.com. My links are on there. We've been updating it, and so I hope it's updated by the time people are like, hey, I can't get to your site. And I'm like, oh, that's a fail.
I went there, so it was working.
Thank God. I'm having words right now with the developer we've been using. But yeah, KyleRoof.com is the right spot. That's the easiest one.
Well, Kyle, I appreciate your time. What time is it there?
7:51 in the PM, so not too bad.
But you're ahead of us, or is it?
Yeah, so it's same day, but my nighttime. But by the time it's your evening, I'm in the future. I'm the next day.
Okay, cool. So do you come back to the States, or are you traveling around a lot, or what? It's like, how's that going?
Once a year. Usually what I try to do is I'll speak at conferences. And so I'll line up a conference, and then I'll line up a family thing or some friends. That's usually how I do it. I just came off a long one. I did 7 weeks, 2 weeks in the US, and then 5 weeks in Europe, hitting different places. But at a point I was doing almost a country every 4 or 5 days. And that got pretty tiring, not going to lie.
Wow.
But good trip.
Where do you live in the States?
Arizona, in Phoenix.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay. And that's where when you come back, that's usually where you end up staying.
It's the easiest one to get to, because then the family that I'm like, hey, look, I came from Thailand. You can fly to Phoenix.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's pretty easy to get to Phoenix when you're wherever you're in the US. So, and if they can't make it, then it's like, all right, well, I came from Thailand. So.
Well, awesome. Well, hey, it was great chatting. I took some notes. It's awesome. And I knew I would learn some things today, and I'm probably farther down the road than a lot of people. So I really appreciate the time and the nuggets. And I know people that are probably listening to this saying, what could I get out of, what does that have to do with real estate investing and stuff? I think at the end of this, they're going to be like, holy smokes. Like, it doesn't have to do with real estate investing. It has to do with if you're a business owner or your brand, or you want yourself out there on Google. We went through some very easy tactical things to do that can really help you, whether it's, dealing with bad stuff, good stuff, or just trying to get yourself up there.
That's right. Yeah. Thanks for having me. This was awesome.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, and hope to run into you one of these days.
Sounds great. Take care.
Okay, bye.
If you're already a real estate investor, you know that aside from cash flow, you also get huge tax benefits by investing in real estate. But are you taking full advantage of all the potential tax benefits? We've been working with Tim Looney at CSSI for a few years now, and he's saved us and our clients hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in taxes doing cost segregation studies on their properties. Let me give you a few examples. We bought a property in 2019. If we had just used straight line depreciation, we would have saved about $18,750 in taxes. But because we did a cost seg, we saved $258,000. That's $239,350 more than standard straight line depreciation in the first year. The other great thing is, if you're classified as a real estate professional, you can apply this to other sources of income like W-2 or 1099 income, and you can also roll over any unused depreciation to future years. If you've owned your properties for a few years already, don't worry, you can still do a cost seg and save big on your taxes. This is not tax advice, so consult your CPA to see if you qualify to take advantage of these benefits. Call or text Tim at 318-469-9861 to get your complimentary property analysis. Once again, that's 318-469-9861. And I'll also include his information in the show notes. You guys don't want to miss out on these tax savings.